There's definitely a rivalry, he's said a lot and now he's got to face it. And yeah, he definitely looks like he's a little bit scared. I don't know.
Khabib Nurmagomedov has never been one to hand out compliments lightly, but when he spoke about Magomed Ankalev ahead of UFC 320, his words turned heads.
He is one of the best who ever did in Russia already. He is keep improving himself, keep climbing on top to be the best who ever do this. No, I really believe he has skills.
The former undefeated lightweight champion went as far as to suggest that Ankalev already belongs among the very best fighters Russia has ever produced, and that he could even climb to the very top of that list in time. Coming from a man widely considered the greatest Russian UFC fighter in history, those words carried serious weight and immediately sparked conversation across the fight world. Ankalev, now 33 years old, is one of only 2 Russian champions currently reigning in the UFC, the other being Khamzat Chimaev. That alone puts him in rare company, but his rise has been a story of quite consistency rather than flashy knockouts or trash talk. His patient, methodical style has carried him all the way to the light heavyweight belt, and now he finds himself defending that title in a rematch against Alex Pereira, one of the most popular and dangerous fighters in the sport.
Alex Pereira has always been one of the scariest fighters in the UFC, but the recent trash talk and change in demeanor is a big tell that he's scared and probably going to lose the rematch. It's very clear that the first Ankalaev fight was the big turning point in the downfall of Alex Pereira's mentality. Not only did the UFC not want to give Ankalaev a title shot, neither did Pereira. Call it what you want, say he didn't deserve it or that he's a boring fighter, but it's really because we all knew that Ankalaev was a nightmare matchup for Pereira. In the build up to that first Ankalaev fight, we could see the shift in demeanor from Alex Pereira. He came away from that fight dismissing Ankalaev's performance and rather putting it on his own lack of preparation and coming in with injuries. So now the trash talk has started. This is Alex Pereira's evil arc. In the past, he has respected all of his opponents, even when he absolutely disliked them. But now for an opponent who is arguably his toughest test, we are just getting blatant disrespect. This is classic fighter psychology. When a fighter senses a big threat and is scared, they respond with aggression. This is just the way that fighters are. It's a defense mechanism. Take the build-up to Merab versus Umar as a great example of this. We all know Merab is this very positive, humble, and respectful guy, especially in the lead-up to fights. But when he faced Umar, we saw a completely different side of him. He became unnecessarily hostile and very clearly rattled. It was because Merab knew that Umar was the biggest threat in his division, and in my opinion, was very clearly scared of Umar.
Pereira, of course, is a man who knows what it feels like to be on top of the world. The Brazilian striker had his run as light heavyweight champion cut short earlier this year when Ankalaev outworked him over 5 rounds at UFC 313. That night, Pereira seemed a step behind and never found the explosive moments that usually define his fights. The unanimous decision loss marked the end of his championship reign, and for someone as competitive as him, that defeat cut deep. Now, just months later, he has the chance to right that wrong in the UFC 320 main event at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
He beat you by decision. Is the goal to go in there and do something spectacular, a spectacular knockout?
No, like I said, I can't take it to heart. I can't let it get to me. So I did a lot of great things in camp, and I have to follow my strategy. So, it's all going to depend on how he behaves in there too. So there's no way of knowing.
In the build-up to this rematch, Pereira has been far more vocal than usual. Typically stoic, he has shown a fiery edge that suggests this fight is personal. He admitted that he wasn't close to his best the first time around, saying his conditioning had been compromised to the point that he felt like only a fraction of himself in the cage. The number he put on it was striking. He estimated that he was only operating at about 40% that night in March. That revelation surprised many, especially after Joe Rogan hinted at an injury leading into the fight, something Pereira later confirmed. Still, he insisted that even a slight improvement in his condition would make a world of difference this time around, and he believes the rematch will erase any doubts about his abilities.
Tune in on October 4th. Why do they need to watch this fight against you and Ankalaev?
I'm at my greatest moment right now. I had some time to train and heal some injuries and take care of some stuff, and I think it's going to be a war. It's going to be a great show for the fans, so they should definitely tune in.
Adding fuel to the fire, Pereira and Ankalaev crossed paths at the UFC Performance Institute not long before fight week. Pereira recounted how Ankalaev and his team allegedly avoided a face-to-face encounter, something the Brazilian found amusing but also irritating. In his eyes, his rival was being hidden away, as if afraid to stir up any kind of confrontation. That encounter only deepened Pereira's belief that Ankalev was avoiding him, and he didn't shy away from labeling the champion with some harsh words. The way Pereira framed it, Ankalev was acting like someone who didn't want to be tested outside the cage.
Ele falou que basicamente eles seguraram ele aí e falaram: você não pode sair agora. Mas tá bom. Mas o que ele tá falando?
No Shama, let's go. October 4.
That narrative plays perfectly into Pereira's mindset going into the second meeting. Losing is never easy for a fighter, but this one seems to have lit a fire under him. After dropping his belt to Ankalev, he compared the sting of defeat to the painful night at UFC 287 when Israel Adesanya knocked him out at middleweight. Losing twice in the same city within a short span of time would be crushing for him, so there's more than just a championship at stake. There's pride, legacy, and the desire to show he can rise again. Pereira insists he's not going to let the same thing happen twice, and that his improved preparation will speak for itself in fight night.
Это нам не важно. Если он хотел меня увидеть вот я здесь. Добро пожаловать.
Mas quem tem a ver agora? Ele pode falar o que ele quiser agora, que tipo, a gente não pode brigar agora, entendeu?
Любое время. Как хотят, так ни разницы нет.
Somos profissionais, respeito você, mas dia 4 de outubro eu vou bater em você. Vou bater de mão aberta, na sua cara.
Скажи, ему, зачем бросаться словами, то, что не знаешь ничего?
То же самое мы ожидаем 4 октября бой. Давайте сделаем это в ринге. Зачем говорить пустые слова?
Mas não falei nada, ele sempre falou. Eu nunca falei nada, ele sempre falou. E agora, quando chegou frente a frente, é um cuzão.
Mas tá bom. Mas o que ele tá falando?
No Shama, let's go. October 4.
Agora mostrou que é uma cuzão aí, né? Entendeu? Porra, velho. Entendeu?
The trash talk hasn't only come from Pereira. Ankalev's coach has had his own harsh take on the Brazilian, dismissing him as nothing more than an aging kickboxer whose skills have dulled over time. From his perspective, Pereira's striking isn't nearly as dangerous as people make it out to be. He claimed Pereira's punches lack the kind of knockout power that can truly end a fight against someone as sharp as Ankalev. He even suggested that if Ankalev chose to open up fully, he could outshine Pereira in pure stand-up fighting. An audacious claim considering Pereira's decorated kickboxing background. The message was clear: they see no surprises coming from Pereira's side, whether in striking, wrestling, or any other department.
Постоянно. Алекс будет проходить, бороться. Почему? Потому что у него в стойке ничего не будет получаться. В самом бою вот, вся арена будет кричать, он слышит только мой голос.
Rashad Evans has been encouraged by Pereira's newfound fire, noting that the Brazilian has shown a more ruthless energy than before, and if Pereira channels that mentality, he could come back stronger than ever.
He showed he's a coward. We'll see. He's hiding now. We'll be in the cage, locked in there, unless he jumps the fence. He's a champion, this guy. Never heard Alex talk like that about anyone.
I love that, Jama. I love that. You know, I've got a chance to see Alex a few times just here and there, and I really like Alex as a person, and I like the fact that you know, he's kind of settled down his life a bit. Just kind of really got dialed in. You know, sometimes success can make you be your own worst enemy, just being so spread out, going here, going there, and you overbook your schedule, and before you know it, you're doing all the other things more than you are actually doing the thing that, you know, that you're making your money from. So I'm glad that he's kind of reconnected to that savage part of himself, because listen, this isn't a nice contest. Yeah, it's great, you can have respect for your opponent, but there has to be that part of you that is just an asshole, to say the least. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be a savage in there, and for him to tap back into that savagery, he's gonna need that. He's gonna need that. So I'm glad that he's feeling that way, and I'm glad that he's not liking them. Shake hands and be friends after the competition.
Dan Hardy shared a similar thought but framed it differently. To him, Pereira gave Ankalev too much respect in their first encounter. Hardy felt that, instead of reacting and backing up, Pereira should have taken the initiative, pressed forward, and forced Ankalev to fight off his back foot. In Hardy's mind, pressure and aggression are the keys to unlocking Pereira's best weapons. not cautious counter-striking.
Do you think that Alex Pereira needs to do this time around to get his hand raised and win that title back?
I think he needs to close the range down a little bit. You know, I think maybe he had a little bit too much respect for Ankalev in the last fight. I also think he wasn't quite sure which hand Ankalev was going to play. You know, and Ankalev is very, very confident as a striker. His wrestling's always been a backup in his game, and he's never particularly wanted to use it too much. But just the idea of it being there, the threat, I don't know, it seemed to make Pereira just kind of hesitate a little bit too much. And Pereira, when he's at that close range, either when you're coming to him, like when Strickland fought him, Strickland was walking into his range, or when someone's moving away and he's walking into their range, like Jamal Hill, it's that, like, you feel that pressure of his kind of frame coming at you, and people feel like they need to react. And what I love about it, there's really good videos of him training online where he slips offline and counters with power punches. And the slip of the punch loads the power punch to come back. So his ability at close range to not only kind of bear over people and make them anxious, but also to pressure them to throw, in which case he feeds off it and works with counters. Like, if I'm Pereira, I would be thinking about getting as close to him as possible, getting in his face, maybe even try and use a bit of tie clinch just to kind of, you know, manage the clinch a bit. But I would also think that he's going to be better defending takedowns on the front foot as well, right? You know, better if he's pressuring forward and forcing Ankalev to shoot under pressure. That would be my thought process, but I don't know. I mean, we might see a very different Ankalev this time around, you know, and that's also something that Pereira's got to adapt to in that first round.
Daniel Cormier's analysis aligned with that view to some extent. He pointed out that Pereira's downfall wasn't about his wrestling defense, as many assumed. Instead, it was about passivity. By moving backward too often, Pereira ceded control of the cage to Ankalev, allowing the Russian to dictate the fight's rhythm. Cormier emphasized that for Pereira to succeed in the rematch, he needs to cut off the cage, stay aggressive, and let his power shots fly without hesitation. Otherwise, the same frustrating scenario could play out again.
I think, as you said, it didn't feel like there was going to be much of a difference. But what did feel different was Alex wrestled much better than we expected him to. He defended takedowns much better than we expected him to. He was not ground to the ground. Now it's up to him, Plinio and Glover, and we have seen him come up with game plans before, to make it to where Alex can actually go get it done and not get pressed against the octagon. That's where the difference has to happen, Chill. He wasn't taken down, but he was controlled. So he was controlled in the clinch last time. He was backed up the entire time. How does he move forward without Ankalev actually pressing into him? I think he needs to get some respect from him very early, Chael, to make Ankalev take a few steps back. Because right now, Ankalev has been in there with him, and he'll have more confidence that he can handle the power of Pereira than he did going into fight one. The unknown is the scariest thing in fighting. Man, everybody this guy hits, he puts down or he bludgeons them. Now he knows he went 25 minutes and that didn't happen to him. So imagine the confidence that comes with that. Golden for us in regards to stepping up and fighting. But he's plus 150 against Ankalev, and Ankalev's minus 180. Chill, I got a question. Are you surprised at the line being that close? Because what we saw in the first fight, it didn't seem like Alex had much for him in regards to answers for stopping Ankalev from pressing him up against the octagon.
It was a hard fight, and I will tell you that Alex won the first round. That's according to the judges, not just according to me. And then he proceeded to lose the next four. Listen, when that contest was over, I didn't think that any reasonable analysis could come to the conclusion that if they did it again, we would get a different outcome. There was also a little bit of a resistance by the fight. This was billed a little bit differently. It seemed like the UFC was on board, but it was Ankalev that was going and picking the fight with Alex. It was Ankalev that was challenging him, calling him out. And I only wonder, generally when a fighter will do that when he's the champion, when the champion starts calling somebody out, particularly a guy that he just beat, it's because his own social media, his own world, the bubble that he lives in, people are disputing it. People are telling, hey, you couldn't do it again. Hey, Alex was hurt. Hey, he fought 4 times in 9 months. Try doing it again. Something like that must have happened to Ankalev. So I think that the audience perhaps saw it a little bit different than I did. But a lot of times I learned something from the audience. So I'm very open to this idea. But Daniel, how are we going to get Pereira to heavyweight? That's my question. And when he moved up to 205, people kind of misremember this. They think he ran through 85 so much we'll let him go. But that's actually wrong. He lost. He lost is the reason that he was able to move up. And I only share with you, if he loses to Ankalaev, I believe he will be a heavyweight. But I just believe that's the spot we're in right now. He just lost to Ankalaev. He doesn't have a belt. I kind of wanted to see him up a division.
Meanwhile, Arman Tsarukyan sees things differently. He believes Ankalaev simply has the more complete skill set, and nothing about the first fight surprised him. Tsarukyan pointed to Ankalaev's sharp left hand and damaging leg kicks as pivotal weapons that disrupted Pereira's balance and neutralized his signature power. From his perspective, there is no reason to expect a different outcome this time around.
What do you think of the main event, Magomed Ankalev beating Alex Pereira?
I know that Ankalaev gonna beat him if it's not lucky punch. We know like Pereira, he's so dangerous. He has a good left hook and kicks, leg kicks. But first round he started with leg kicks, and I was scared like again they're gonna like kill his legs, and then he gotta change his stand. But then he could change his game. He started to go forward, and he won last I think 4 rounds.
So you scored it for Magomed?
No, 3-2. 5 was like even 50-50, you know, you never know.
Michael Bisping took a more measured stance. He acknowledged that Ankalaev's wrestling may not be at the level of some Dagestan's most famous grapplers, but it remains a formidable weapon. He also warned of the stakes for Pereira, stressing that another loss here could be devastating for his career. Yet, if Pereira manages to turn the tables and reclaim the title, the entire narrative changes. Such a win could propel him into massive opportunities, including possible matchups with stars like heavyweight standout Tom Aspinall.
And he kind of makes a dick out of you, right? I've been there. I know what it feels like. And yes, Magomed, even though he's from Dagestan, isn't a Khabib-level wrestler or Islam Makhachev or something like that. But he does have wrestling in his back pocket. He beat him at his own game. But Pereira is under a lot of pressure here. He's got to come out. He's got to be aggressive. He's got to go forward. If he's going to get that belt back and get some pride back, he's got to win this fight. Because if he doesn't, this might be the last time we see him fight in the UFC. We saw him have a bit of a meltdown on Twitter recently when something didn't go his way. I forget the exact tweet, what it was, but you know what I'm talking about if you follow the sport. And now he's talking about potentially fighting for karate combat. He's talking about potentially boxing. He's made an absolute fortune. He's left his mark on the sport. But if he beats Magomed Ankalaev, then of course, you know, forget about all those conversations. He's going to be staying in the UFC, and he'll probably fancy his chances against Tom Aspinall at some point down the line.
Not every observer believes Pereira has the hunger to make it happen, though. Rising contender Zhang Mingyang questioned whether Pereira still carries the same fire that fueled his earlier success. He compared Pereira's situation to Conor McGregor's. In Zhang's eyes, Pereira may already be past his peak drive, leaving Ankalaev with a clear advantage in motivation and discipline.
Who do you think wins that fight? What's your prediction for the title fight?
Yeah, I think still Ankalaev can defend his title, because I think Pereira is not as motivated as before. So I mean, if we can get the old Pereira back, he's still the, let's say, the better striker than Ankalaev. But for now, if he still fought like the way like he fought last fight, I think Ankalaev can still win this fight.
Why do you think there's a lack of motivation there, in your opinion?
Because he has earned too much money. He's too rich. I think it's no matter who you are, as a fighter or as a human being, if you are too rich, you are just like a kind of lack of motivation, as when you are young, when you are poor, when you are hungry. I think that's...
All of this sets the stage for a rematch loaded with storylines. On one side is Ankalaev, a methodical champion who has earned the respect of legends like Khabib and continues to climb toward all-time great status among Russian fighters. On the other is Pereira, a fiery challenger determined to prove that his first loss to Ankalaev was more about circumstances than skill. Add in the personal jabs, the contrasting predictions from analysts, and the high stakes for both men's careers, and UFC 320 suddenly looks like one of the most compelling events of the year. When the cage door closes at T-Mobile Arena, there will be no hiding, no excuses, and no way to avoid the truth. For Pereira, it's about redemption and silencing the doubts. For Ankalaev, it's about validation and proving that Khabib's praise was well-deserved. No matter the outcome, one thing is clear: the light heavyweight division has rarely felt this tense, this personal, or this unpredictable.